Pam Bondi, the United States Attorney General since 2025, had always been known for her relentless pursuit of justice. With a career rooted in law and public service, she had worked tirelessly to protect the American people, whether through her efforts to combat human trafficking, enforce consumer protection laws, or defend the country against corporate corruption. Her tenure as the Attorney General of Florida from 2011 to 2019 had solidified her place as one of the most powerful women in politics. Bondi's ability to navigate the labyrinth of legal challenges and political intrigue was unparalleled. Whether in front of the cameras or behind closed doors, she commanded respect from her colleagues and adversaries alike. Known for her unwavering commitment to the truth, Pam had built her career on transparency and holding the powerful accountable, no matter the personal or professional cost. It was this reputation, combined with her rise as one of the most trusted advisors to President Donald Trump, that put her in a unique position within Washington. When the president was re-elected for his second term, Pam had been appointed as the United States Attorney General, a role that many had speculated she would fill due to her background and loyalty. But even within the halls of power, she was more than just a loyal figurehead. She was a warrior in the fight for justice, a protector of the law who refused to bow to anyone, even when the stakes were higher than ever before. One cold, rainy evening in Washington, D.C., Pam sat alone in her office, surrounded by stacks of legal documents. The office was quiet, save for the faint hum of the air conditioning and the occasional rustling of papers. Pam's mind was consumed by a case that had been building for months. It all started with an anonymous letter sent to her office, a letter that seemed, at first, to be just another conspiracy theory. But as she read the letter and examined the attached redacted documents, she knew something was different this time. There was a code embedded within the redactions, a series of numbers and symbols that seemed out of place. It was the kind of thing Pam had encountered before in her years of legal work, something meant to distract or confuse, yet it had an undeniable feeling of legitimacy. Pam's curiosity got the better of her. She had seen her fair share of fraudulent claims and hoaxes over the years, but there was something about this case that kept her up at night. As the days passed, Pam found herself going deeper into the investigation, her professional instincts driving her to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As the United States Attorney General, Pam was used to handling sensitive information, but this was something altogether different. She had dealt with political scandals, corporate corruption, and even international threats, but what she had stumbled upon seemed to cut through the heart of Washington itself. The evidence she was uncovering pointed to a vast network of corruption, one that spanned across multiple sectors of government, business, and the media. But it wasn't just the magnitude of the operation that disturbed her. It was the fact that the people involved were some of the most powerful figures in the country. Pam sat at her desk, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as she examined the encrypted files she had obtained. The documents were painstakingly redacted, but as Pam dug deeper, the truth began to emerge. The names, the connections, the illicit activities, it all started to fall into place. The truth was right in front of her, but the deeper she went, the more dangerous things became. Pam had seen her fair share of powerful people fall from grace, but this was different. The evidence she was holding could change everything. It could expose a level of corruption in Washington that few had ever imagined. Her office, once a sanctuary of quiet efficiency, now felt like a pressure cooker. As the files on her desk grew larger, Pam's sense of unease grew stronger. There were moments when she felt as if someone was watching her, as if there were eyes on her from every angle. The intensity of the investigation, paired with the dangerous information she had uncovered, made it clear she was walking a tightrope. The stakes had never been higher. One evening, as Pam scrolled through yet another batch of documents, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her trusted assistant, Maria. "Pam, we need to talk. You're going to want to see this." Pam's heart skipped a beat. Maria was one of the few people in the world she trusted implicitly. If Maria was reaching out now, it meant something had changed. Something big. Pam immediately replied, "Where are you?" Maria's response came almost instantly. "I'm at the office. You need to see what I found." Pam didn't hesitate. She stood up, grabbing her jacket and locking the door behind her. The walk to Maria's office was short, but every step felt heavier than the last. As Pam entered the office, she found Maria standing by a desk, a folder in her hands. Maria looked up as Pam entered, her face pale. "You're not going to believe this," Maria said, handing the folder to Pam. Pam opened the folder with care, her fingers brushing over the contents. The documents inside were startling, more evidence of the web of corruption she had uncovered. But this time, it was different. This time, the evidence connected high-ranking government officials, foreign agents, and business leaders. Names she recognized. Names she never thought she would see in such a context. "There's more," Maria continued. "I've traced the money flow. It's all tied to the same people. People with connections that run deep. This isn't just a handful of bad actors. It's a system." Pam's mind raced as she pieced the information together. She had always known that Washington was full of corruption, but this was a different level. She now understood why so many powerful people were willing to protect each other. The stakes were much higher than anyone realized, and Pam had the evidence that could bring the entire system down. As she looked at the files before her, Pam knew one thing for certain. She couldn't let this go. The truth had to come out. But as she considered the risks, she realized just how dangerous it would be. The people behind this web of corruption would stop at nothing to protect themselves. They had too much to lose. Pam closed the folder and looked at Maria. "We need to move carefully. I can't take this lightly. The consequences could be catastrophic." Maria nodded, her expression grave. "I understand. But you've got to make a decision, Pam. The truth can't stay hidden forever." Pam's mind was spinning. She had always known that standing up to the powerful would come with risks, but now, the stakes had never been higher. The truth was out there, and it was up to Pam Bondi to decide how and when to expose it. Pam Bondi's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the file Maria had handed her. The weight of the documents seemed to press down on her, each piece of evidence revealing something more dangerous, more far-reaching than she had ever anticipated. The names, the financial trails, and the connections were undeniable. A network of corruption spanning across multiple levels of government, business, and even foreign interests was now in her hands. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. This wasn't just another high-profile case. This was something that could change the course of history, and not just for her. If she revealed what she had uncovered, the entire political landscape of Washington could come crashing down. "What do we do now?" Maria's voice broke through Pam's thoughts. She had been with Pam through thick and thin, and Pam trusted her judgment completely. Maria had always been a steady presence in moments of crisis, and right now, Pam needed that more than ever. Pam stood up, pacing across the room. She had always been methodical, careful, but this was different. The stakes were higher than anything she had encountered before. The corruption in these files didn't just involve low-level officials. No, this was a web that reached into the highest echelons of power. "We need to keep this quiet for now," Pam said, her voice steady, though her mind was racing. "If this gets out too soon, we'll lose control. We need to know who else is involved, where this money is coming from, and how deep it goes. I'm not going to expose this until I have everything. We have to make sure we're bulletproof." Maria nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll keep digging, but we have to be careful. Whoever's behind this won't hesitate to take us down if they know we're onto them." Pam knew Maria was right. The people behind this operation were powerful, and they would do anything to protect their interests. But Pam wasn't one to back down from a challenge. She had spent her career taking on powerful adversaries, and this would be no different. Over the next few weeks, Pam and Maria worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle. Pam reached out to trusted allies within the Justice Department, carefully bringing them into the fold without revealing too much. The last thing she needed was for word to leak before she had all the evidence. As the investigation deepened, Pam discovered even more disturbing details. The money trail, once a faint thread, now seemed like an open wound, exposing a vast network of corruption that stretched from Washington to foreign capitals, involving figures in both the public and private sectors. The power players she had once admired were now implicated, their actions tied to illegal activities that went back decades. But Pam couldn't let herself be consumed by anger or fear. She had to stay focused. The truth had to be exposed, no matter the cost. Every night, she went over the files again, making sure nothing was missed, checking the connections for any gaps. Every piece of the puzzle mattered. One mistake, one overlooked detail, and everything could fall apart. Then, one evening, after hours of sifting through documents, Pam found something that made her blood run cold. It was a series of encrypted emails, carefully hidden within the financial transactions she had been tracking. As she cracked the code, she realized that these emails contained direct communications between high-ranking government officials and international players, powerful figures with connections to foreign governments. Pam's hands trembled as she read through the messages. They weren't just discussing policy or trade. No, these emails contained evidence of illegal activity, money laundering, bribery, and even the manipulation of elections. The people involved weren't just ordinary criminals. They were some of the most powerful figures in the world, and they were willing to do whatever it took to keep their secrets buried. Pam sat back in her chair, staring at the screen, her mind racing. This was it. This was the smoking gun she had been searching for. She had found the key to the entire operation. And with it came the realization that exposing this evidence would change everything. Washington would never be the same again. But as she sat there, the weight of the decision looming over her, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The files, the emails, they were all leading her in the same direction. But who was pulling the strings? Who was at the top of this operation? That night, Pam couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the details of the case swirling in her mind. She had the evidence she needed, but there was one question she couldn't answer. Who else knew about this? And how far would they go to stop her from exposing the truth? The next day, Pam called a secret meeting with a select group of her most trusted allies. She needed to make sure she had all the support she could get before moving forward. They couldn't afford any mistakes. The people behind this corruption were too powerful. Pam knew they wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone who got in their way. As the meeting began, Pam laid out the evidence she had uncovered. The room was filled with a tense silence as her colleagues took in the gravity of the situation. They all knew that what Pam was about to do could change everything, whether for better or worse. "Pam, this is bigger than anything we've ever dealt with," one of her colleagues said. "But if this gets out, we'll be in danger. You're playing with fire." Pam nodded, her expression grim. "I know, but we have no choice. The American people deserve to know the truth, and I won't stop until I expose it. We've come too far to turn back now." The room fell silent once more, each person in the room understanding the risks they were about to take. But Pam's resolve was unshakable. She had already made up her mind. The truth would come out, no matter the cost. As the meeting concluded, Pam knew that this was just the beginning. The battle ahead would be fierce, and the consequences of exposing the truth could be catastrophic. But Pam Bondi wasn't afraid. She had spent her entire career fighting for what was right, and this time would be no different. Pam Bondi stood in front of the mirrors in her office, staring at her reflection. The decision she had made hours ago wasn't an easy one. The stakes had never been higher. She knew that exposing the full extent of the corruption she had uncovered would be a perilous journey, but her resolve had only strengthened. The evidence she had was irrefutable, and if she held back, the truth would never see the light of day. The American people deserved better. She had spent the last few days preparing for this moment, working with her most trusted allies to ensure that every detail was airtight. The evidence was ready. The strategy was set. But as Pam readied herself to take the next step, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what she was about to do. The media would spin it. The political elites would try to cover it up, and there were those who would do whatever it took to stop her. But in that moment, Pam realized she was beyond caring. The truth needed to come out. "Pam," a voice called out from the doorway. It was Maria, her trusted assistant and confidant. "We've got a problem." Pam turned around, her stomach sinking. "What is it?" Maria stepped forward, holding a phone in her hand. We just got word that someone leaked the information. They know you've been digging. We need to move fast." Pam's heart raced. She had expected this moment, the moment when the powers that be would realize what was happening and come after her. But she hadn't anticipated it so soon. Whoever had leaked the information wasn't just playing a waiting game. They were making their move. The people involved were watching her closely, and they knew that if Pam went public with the truth, their world would crumble. "Who leaked it?" Pam demanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. "We don't know yet," Maria replied. "But whoever it is, they've got eyes everywhere. We need to take the evidence to the press and ensure it doesn't get buried." Pam nodded, her mind racing. She couldn't afford to wait any longer. The people who were behind this web of corruption had too much to lose, and they wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone who threatened their power. But Pam wasn't afraid. She had been in tough situations before, but this was different. This time, the truth would be the weapon. Within minutes, Pam was on the phone with a trusted reporter, someone she knew would be able to handle the story with the sensitivity it required. She couldn't risk a media frenzy, but she also couldn't let the evidence stay hidden any longer. The reporter agreed to meet her in a secure location, a place where no one would be able to trace their steps. As Pam and Maria made their way to the rendezvous point, Pam's mind was focused. She couldn't afford to hesitate. The future of Washington and the integrity of the American government depended on what she was about to reveal. Her steps were measured, deliberate, as they entered the private meeting room. The reporter, a seasoned journalist known for uncovering political corruption, was already there, waiting for them. Pam didn't waste any time. She handed over the evidence, making sure every document was accounted for. "This is it," Pam said, her voice calm but resolute. "Everything you need to expose the corruption is right here. But it's not just about the story. It's about making sure the truth doesn't get buried. We have to make sure this reaches the American people." The reporter nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I know what this means. It's not just a story, it's the truth. And we won't let anyone stop it from coming out." As they parted ways, Pam felt a surge of determination. She had done everything she could to ensure that the truth was out in the open. But she knew the fight wasn't over. The powers behind the corruption would try to suppress the story to discredit the evidence. Pam couldn't let that happen. She had made it this far, and there was no turning back. The next few hours were a blur as the story broke across the nation. News outlets reported on the shocking revelations, detailing the corruption that had infected every level of government and business. The names of the individuals involved were released, and the extent of the network's manipulation of the system was laid bare for all to see. The public's reaction was swift and furious. Citizens across the country demanded accountability, calling for investigations and legal action against those implicated in the scandal. Pam's phone rang nonstop, her inbox flooded with messages of support, but also threats. She had known this would come. Those who had built their empire on lies and deceit wouldn't go down quietly. But Pam remained undeterred. She had done what was right, and the truth was now in the hands of the American people. As the days passed, the investigation into the corruption intensified. The president's administration, which had supported Pam's efforts from the beginning, now found itself in the eye of the storm. The revelations Pam had uncovered not only exposed the extent of the corruption, but also rocked the foundations of Washington's political elite. No one was safe, and everyone knew it. Pam continued to work closely with law enforcement and legal teams to ensure that the investigation moved forward without interference. She had become a symbol of justice, someone who had taken on the most powerful figures in the country and won. The fight, however, was far from over. There were still those who would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. But Pam had made it clear, the truth would not be buried. The impact of her actions spread across the country as ordinary Americans took to the streets, demanding that justice be served. The scandal that had once been hidden in the shadows was now exposed for all to see. And as Pam looked on, knowing the fight was just beginning, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had fought for the truth, and she had won. But this was only the start of a much bigger battle. The truth, once unleashed, could never be put back in the bottle. And Pam Bondi wasn't about to stop until every last person involved in the corruption had been held accountable.